It's
Hi.
wonderful to have you with us today.
Hello.
Um,
Thank you.
how has your day been going?
Good so far. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
I told the audience members a little about the book and how much I appreciated reading it. I have been patiently waiting for this session because I'm a very big romantic fiction fan. So it's just amazing to talk with you today. So I have to ask, the characters in your book, they're so diverse. They have such contrasting personalities, and through their conversations, they're talking about these philosophies on love and life in society. How did you get inspired to write such an amazingly nuanced book?
I hope I didn't get too heavy and philosophical while reading, because that was my biggest concern. I don't want to, let it become very heavy and what people might take as boring. That was my biggest concern. Uh, so, they say that if a book is read 1,000 times, it's 1,000 different books. So, which means that everyone will have a different interpretation of the book. And even if the same person reads a book again, they read it differently. It's very difficult to say that. Okay, so I have always had very strong notions about the way love and romance has been portrayed by the books we read, by the films we watch, by the television series that we read. And towards the end of the book, there's this line where one of the authors says that I have met so many people, elderly people, and not one has ever said that I regret not with being the one I love. All of them said that I regret not doing the things that I wanted to do. And I think that's the basic truth of our lives. That's the world that we live in, and we are massively misled by the things that we are shown. And I teach as well, so I interact with a lot of students and younger people. So, and I see what their focuses are during college, and how they imagine their lives to be, and what they're running after. And I can't go and barge into everyone's personal life and say कि कुछ नहीं निकल के आने वाला है इससे, तुम गलत जगह जा रहे हो. So, but I had a lot to say, and that's what I've tried to say with this book.
And it can be shown in all of the characters because they all have such different perspectives on life. And what I loved about the book was how they shifted between the perspectives. The three characters, we're all seeing life from their point of views and their interactions and how they think about the other characters in their life. Was that something that came about organically, or did you start writing with that?
So when I started writing the book, there was this whole idea of the title, like the part I left with you. So there was this whole idea of when you part with people, what's your impact on their lives after you leave? And so I was very clear that there's gonna be one character who's very depressed after separating from someone, and there's this one character who's feeling very liberated after that one breakup. And then there will be this one character who has had a lot of impact by the author already, and she is gonna leave a huge impact in turn. So this was the whole idea, the premise that I started with. So I would say that this was the basic skeleton, and then the characters manifested on their own. And like Natasha's character really slowly came to life while I was writing it. And but Ratna's character, I was very clear about. She's someone full of energy, very bubbly, very cheerful, and refusing to get upset no matter what. And Ronit's character also was like, I was very sure that he's gonna be very bitter, very cynical about everything, and almost stepping into clinical depression. So that was the setup.
It's wonderful to see how Ronit's cynicism, it balances with Ratna's optimism and also the thoughtfulness that Natasha brings to the story and how she's thinking about her past and what all happened. I have to ask, a lot of the times in almost all of the chapters, you've written the full names of the characters, something that Ratna explicitly says that she does not like. Why so?
I think that happened. Okay, so I don't know. I've done it everywhere, but I think consciously where I was doing it when the other character wanted to trouble her, na? So because it was very evident that she doesn't like her full name. So whenever anyone wanted to poke her, then they would go like Ratna Kumari Jamwal. What are you doing? Like that.
It's wonderful to see how irritated she gets sometimes when they mention that, because there is one teacher of hers who definitely makes it a point to say her full name all the time. Also, you mentioned so many themes in the story. There are so many philosophies that are contradicting each other and so many things to think about. But there is something that I absolutely felt really interesting. You mentioned a lot of the times in the book how children and they're getting exposed to things that they shouldn't be, how their innocence is being put in jeopardy. How, as a writer, do you think do you combat that and try to safeguard the youth?
So, I see the thing for this, the thing is that, we will always interpret different things differently. So, we do not know what negative impact might happen to someone after reading a certain book or watching a certain television show or watching a film. So, that's a very, very, very tricky line to tread. That's one. I function according to my own sensibilities. I'll tell you something which I have not told anyone before. So, this book essentially was not like one independent volume when I sat down to write it. So, this and my previous book, Love to Hurt You, they were supposed to be one single book. And what I was trying to do was, I was trying to present a very abstract uh, idea that we are living in the same world which is throwing negativity on us all the time. So how do different people react differently to it? So if you look at what happens in Love to Hurt You, which is a very disturbing book and very, very dark and very negative, I don't recommend that book for younger readers. Primarily meant for adults and strictly for adults. If you're below 18, stay away from the book. It's not meant for you. But in that book, what I tried exploring was that if the world around someone is very negative and someone has a tendency to tread that negative path, what happens then? So that was a psychological exploration from that front. And this book is like if everything is going wrong around you, but you don't really have that negative streak inside you, then what will happen to you? So this book was an exploration from that front. Initially, all the both the books and all the chapters were intermixed. But what was happening was that this was an abstract idea which was connecting the two stories, and the two stories were not getting intertwined in plot. So I was suggested by the editors that Rahul, it's not working. No one's going to understand ये हो क्या रहा है, वो कहानी अलग चल रही है, ये कहानी अलग चल रही है. It's too abstract to actually grasp it. So make it two different books. So and that's how it became two different books.
But I also love how even in this book there are clearly two different narratives that are going on. There's Natasha's side of the story and then there's Ronit's side of the story. Also, I have to ask, there is a lot of themes on bullying also, especially in schools. What are your thoughts on that?
It's very strange. See, I was never personally bullied in school. My classmates and my friends from school were very supportive. If someone would even try to bully me, they would come to protect me. But I always have this very strong thing for the underdogs, and that's one of my basic concerns. So even I try it to restrain it, it somehow creeps into my writing. So I can't help it. That's an automated mechanism that I have.
And we appreciate you so much for it because we all want to root for the underdog somehow. Also, coming back to Natasha and Ronit, their side of the story. Natasha is so she's demure and she's thoughtful about her past and she's trying to tread through it, trying to understand what all happened, where she went wrong, where he went wrong. And then there's Ronit who's basically being forced to talk about it by Ratna. So how did that come about?
I think that's a very basic gender trait. No, women are relatively open about discussing their feelings and with their friends, but men are not. So I think that's where it came up from. Like it's difficult to make men talk as opposed to women.
Also, coming to that very theme, you talk about so many fairy tales and how their basic premise is that a princess is there in need and waiting to be helped by a prince or a knight who's just going there to rescue her. Are there any books that you can recommend us that follow the thought that you have portrayed that is going against that narrative?
There's this whole compilation of fairy tales which just come out. I'm forgetting the name of the people who have written it, but they've just written all the fairy tales, switching the roles of men and women. So that's one interesting book I would definitely recommend. So look up for that. I'm forgetting the title, I'm forgetting the author's name, but that's one. If you pick up Neil Gaiman's books, the undercurrent in the books in which there are lead female characters. For example, if I pick up Coraline, again it has that kind of a streak, and even Stardust to some extent, portrays women or female characters in a story tale set up very differently. So these are the three books I would recommend.
Okay, so I have to ask, do you believe in opposites attracting in
No,
the whole genre of it? Because I have to ask this because in the story, Ratna, she's such a positive flower. She's like a sunflower. She's sunlight basically. And then there's the cynicism of Ronit, and they have such amazing chemistry together. So what about that?
Personally, I don't think opposite attract, because I think there has to be, but that's my personal thought. It has nothing to do with, how things actually might work for other people or how other people work. It's my personal comfort zone. So if there's someone who is completely opposite in thoughts and in philosophies as to what I believe in, it won't work for me. I know that much.
Well, that's sad to hear. We would have loved to see more of that chemistry. Okay, do you think Ronit, he actually subconsciously knew that Ratna was there to help him in the initial few days? That's why he let her stay in his home?
So how I saw it, that he knew what she was doing. He was aware that what she was trying to do and why she was trying to do, and he understood that she's trying to help him as well. But why he let him stay is why he lets her stay is something which he himself, as I was writing, was not clear about. Whether he was being too polite to ask her to leave, whether that was the situation, or whether he just liked someone to have around him when he had stayed for such a long time alone. So he himself was not very sure about why he is behaving the way he was.
Well, I like to think that he subconsciously knew that she was going to help him because that makes it all the more spicy for me. Ronit, he talks about so many things in the book, and half of the time they're so negative to even think about in our own lives. But there's something that he mentions a little about, that is art and money and the relationship between the two. Is that something you can talk a little more about?
So there are studies on this. Like there are people who have like written volumes on this. See, so if there's a society which is still struggling to stabilize, people don't have enough food to eat, and people don't have the basic amenities that they need to have a let's not say comfortable life, but a hygienic life. In that setup, art is completely out of question because you're struggling for the basics. Once you cross that level, when you start when you have some time to start observing things around you as opposed to just fighting for your survival, then these things like literature, art, and all of these come into the picture. If you're interested in this subject, there's a very basic introductory book to this subject which is called Ways of Seeing. So that's a book by John Berger. So if you find this idea interesting, that's the first book that you should pick up and look into. How art has developed. So only the rich can have that luxury of I want to have some art around me because I have time, and I have the money that I can go out and get some kind of art. And they are the people who commission art. If they don't like a painting, they won't buy it. So basically, the rich are designing the way art develops. That's one of the theories about how art develops. So that's something which I have mentioned in the book.
That is such an interesting concept in itself because we think art generates from this place of emotion and vulnerability, and even writers, that is something that I've noticed. But then there are people, you have your audience, right? And your audience, they want something specific from you. So you commission your way in that. and you mold your art in a way that will please the audiences and will please the trends and basically garner you a lot of money. My eyes have been opened. I have to ask you.
Sorry, go
Yeah,
on.
please go on. Go on.
So it's very complex, this whole setup. That's why I said it's just an introductory idea to delve in. But you can also look at this whole thing, the whole rich driving how the art develops as a filter. Like people are working with their emotions to create the art, but then there's this filter which selects and which rejects, you know so that's the thing. So we cannot say that it's like completely stripped of all emotion and feeling, that then it will cease to be art because it's not able to convey anything. But then there's this filter. And also, as an artist, it's a commercial world. Even books, it's business. If a book doesn't sell, no publisher would want me to be publishing with them. So one has to understand, because there's a cost. The book needs to be printed, bound, marketed, sent out to the market. There's an expenditure, and if the return is not coming, it's very simple basic economics, finance. It doesn't work, it doesn't work. So it does definitely gets directed by that. But as an artist, what I have understood is that see I wrote Love to Hurt You and I wrote The Part I Left With You. What I am saying is the same thing. When people leave you and step out of your life, how can you react? How you might react? That is a question which I want people to start thinking and reflecting upon. Love to Hurt You also talks about the same thing, in which a person leaves another person completely devastated, and she just wants to go out and hurt everyone. So that's what the kind of impact it had on that person. And in this book, you've understood what's happening here. The basic concept is the same. What happens to a person? What's like we leave impression on people, and that impression can work in any which way for that person. That's the basic concept. And I've written two stories with the same concept, and both of them are very different. So as an artist, I need to understand that how will today's age and how will today's people understand it better, like which language will they understand better. So that's also there.
I am now seeing the book in a completely different light, and I have to reread it again because I think for the first time now I will be seeing things that I didn't see before, reading between the lines and whatnot. I have to ask, did you always plan into going into writing, and did you always plan to be an author, or did that just come about organically?
Since I was a kid, I wanted to write, but I was told that it's nothing that's going to get you money, so you won't be able to support a household with this profession. So be mindful of that. Then I wanted to have something artistic and something technical, which would get me a good satisfaction in terms of what I do and get some decent amount of money also. So I studied architecture. But throughout school, I would always write, and I would always send my articles for the school magazines also, but no one would ever understand them and they would never get published. And same kept happening in the college as well. I would paint and I would write, and I would send both the entries. The paintings will always get lapped up like anything, but no one ever picked up whatever I wrote. They said, we don't understand, this doesn't make sense, because I would always write some kind of allegory and some kind of indirect stuff to say what I was trying to say, and it never worked. But when I finished college and when I got a job and when I started to have some kind of free time during the weekends or some part of the day, so I said, now I need to sit down and write. And I wrote the first book as soon as I finished college. I might not have written any more if that book had not sold the way it did. But it absolutely shocked me with the kind of response I got. I used to be in Gurgaon that time, and people on the roadside and people, all the bookstores, they would know me, and I was never used to that kind of a presence, that wherever you go, people turn around and just see, okay, that's the guy. I was always a nobody. And then, but if that book had not happened the way, I might not have written, but then I wrote the next, and then it was something which I would not give up for anything.
Well, I can't imagine you being a nobody because you have left imprints in people's lives through your books that are just absolutely difficult to remove. And oh, if only your college teammates they knew it now that they should have kept your writings very safe, they would have fared much better.
But
Okay,
maybe they were
how
actually
was
not
the
that great pieces of writing. I don't know mine. Like I've also grown as a person over the years, so maybe they were so bad. I don't know.
well, we sure would have liked to see them. How was the publishing process for this book like? What was it like working with Juggernaut?
Oh, so this book was turned down by someone else, and then I took it to Juggernaut, and they liked it. They went ahead with it, but I have to say, right now, today, there is no team better than Juggernaut. Like, if you look at my previous books, you would see I've worked with everyone. There's hardly anyone who I've not published with. But you know. Juggernaut has got such a strong editing team, it's not even funny. Like the way they sit and edit and the kind of suggestions they go and the kind of, microscopic details they pick up when they're going through the text, it's amazing, amazing. So it was wonderful working with them, honestly.
They also have an electronic platform, if I'm not wrong. What are your thoughts on that, on ebooks nowadays and audiobooks?
So, okay, personally, how I read audiobooks and how I read digital and Kindle books. So, what happens with me is that if it's not a very heavy text, if there's not too much of marking that I need to do, I'm good with Kindle or any digital format. I'm good with any digital platform. If it's a book which makes me think a lot, and in turn, what will happen is that I would need to make a lot of notes in turn. In that case, I want a physical copy. In that case, I would prefer a hardback because it's easier to open and you can write easily and all of that. But if I don't get a hardback and if it's only a paperback, I'm good with paperback as well. But that's that. And then if it's a simple plain drama which is just like a story that you want to enjoy, if it's like something like a detective novel or a plain fantasy which doesn't make you think too much or which doesn't talk much of philosophy, then I'm good with audiobooks as well.
It makes me think and makes me guess that you're the kind of writer who loves to put quotes on the book and to highlight pages and put in a lot of bookmarks and whatnot.
You
And I
want to see
love
how
those kinds of
want to
readers.
see how I do it? I have a book lying right here which
Yes,
I.
definitely.
So there's this book called The House in the Cerulean Sea. So I just finished reading it. It's a very charming book, and generally what happens is that if a book is too heavy or there's so much of pathos and all of that, then we consider that the books are very impressive. But this book made me thought so much, and it was also pleasant. Like so I had to mark things like that, and I had to put notes like that. And there are like pages and pages where I have done this. So it was an absolute. So this is how I mark my books, and this is how I make notes on them.
My heart has officially just lost because it has gone over to that book. Because, oh my God, books that are marked up with quotes are just my absolute favorite fantasy. Okay,
But it slows the reading process. It really slows my reading process.
but when you go back to it, it's so much better, isn't it, to see where you've left your own opinions on the book and the parts that encouraged you to read it further and that made you stop and think about it. That's, I think, the favorite part about reading a book, things that make you stop and think. Which I have to say, this book really made me read. Every time Ronit would go into a monologue about one thing or another, or Ratna would ask him something, I would just wait for a second, then I would turn the page again, reread it, and see what all names he's taken. And especially with Natasha, when she's talking, Every time she mentions something, a philosopher or something, I have to go back and Google it. Oh, so this is what it means, and get a clarification. It was absolutely riveting. I have this part of the book that I absolutely adore. It's written by Ratna, and she's written a letter to Ronit. And I won't give any spoilers to everyone here why she's written the letter, but she has. And there's this quote she mentions that where she's going to, when she's going to debut a novel, she is going to add that in the book. And the quote is, truly passionate people are like good firewood. They catch fire slowly and they burn for long. And this quote, it just absolutely shook me. I have no other word for it. I'm still riveting after reading that. How did you come up with that, first of all? And what is your favorite passage in the book?
So this particular quote, these set of lines, I've been stuck at home for the past 2 years. I'm not used to it. So I had always been traveling, and I used to go to Himachal a lot. You're from Dehradun, I believe, is it? So
Yes, sir.
those parts I've not traveled much, but Himachal was very close to Punjab. So I used to travel a lot to Himachal every weekend. Used to be, Friday evening I leave, Sunday evening I come back, and it was winters. And I was staying at one of the homestays, and in the evening they were just setting up the campfire, and we were talking about firewood. And the locals, they just told me that अच्छी लकड़ी वो नहीं होती जो एकदम से जल जाए. अच्छी लकड़ी वो है जो धीरे धीरे चलती रहे और देर तक आपको आग का सेक दे. So that's where it came from. That then it just struck me, if you are completely passionate about something, it will rise slowly in you. It won't be like a soda pop, because if it's like that, it'll happen, it'll pop, and it'll be over. But if something is building inside you for a long period of time, and then you start working for it, then that's how it happens. So that's how that
Sort of a
line came.
sort of a coals to diamond philosophy, right?
Uh, which is
That you're a piece of coal and
oh
you go
yeah,
through so much
yeah, yeah.
pressure in life, and then
And
you
that
become a
shapes.
diamond.
Yes.
And favorite passage in the book?
Favorite passage from the book. Uh, there are so many. It's very hard for me to pick up one. But okay, so the whole bit where he talks about how all these films have kind of destroyed the youth and they've misled them. That's something which I want everyone to read, because no one understands it. There was this when I went to college, which was like in the early 2000s. We would go to college and we would look up to our teachers, like these are the people who are our gurus, and we have learned so much from them, and let's go ahead. So that used to be our idea, motivation. But when I started teaching, like around 2013 or 14, I think. So at that time, I saw something completely different in the eyes of the students. They would come and they would go, these are the evil people that we have seen in those movies who will ruin our lives. you know and I was not happy with that. One, because yes, I would see it as someone personally looking at me like a villain, and two, I would see that you don't understand what you're missing, because here is the place where you learn, and you have to trust these people who are your faculty, and you're looking at them with these ideas which directly comes from Three Idiots. Like, that film single-handedly has antagonized the whole community of teachers like nobody's business. So this is one thing which I wanted to talk about, and I have written a long essay in one of those chapters stating that. And another thing which I don't know why, but there's this part where Ronit talks about how he got into how he got his love for books, where it comes from, and he talks about his grandfather and all of that. Somehow that passage, whenever I sit down to read, it moves me a lot. So these are the two passages which I can think of right now.
The bit about the movies, as a media and communication student, I have to say it encouraged me and it validated me so much because I've been thinking about it for so long on how movies they're villainizing the wrong things in the society. And it just they're all slapstick humor basically in all of them that isn't encouraging, and it isn't inculcating anything that is educating in the students, and yet they're all being box office hits one after the other, raving like whatever. So that was amazing book to read, and I totally agreed with Ronit when he said it.
You know, I
As
was
a writer,
I was so furious when I saw Tamasha because the film started and I loved the opening sequence. No, I loved that whole song. It was so wonderful, so beautiful. They were talking about intertextuality of the stories, how they're the same stories, but they're different and all of that. I absolutely loved the bit in which they were traveling and, having fun. It was such a joy to watch them do all that. Then it became boring in the second half when things just got repetitive and sad, which was fine. But when they just took not even 5 minutes to show him as the biggest playwright of the country, I was like, what are you doing? Do you even understand? Because, day in and day out, I deal with students and none of them want to work hard because they just think they'll become famous like that. And these are the films that establish those thoughts in their minds. And they so conveniently showed that your job sucks. You're doing something that you did not want to do. You've been forced to follow this engineering course and now follow your passion. And tomorrow morning you will have this huge auditorium filled with people and you'll have this stage where people will worship you and then you will be a big success. Because I personally know a lot of people from the theater and I know the kind of struggle they have been through, not for years but for decades, you know and here's this film that's showing that it happens like that. Quit your job, do this, and it'll be all be fine. You'll become a star. So I was very, very, very angry when I saw that.
I completely agree on that point. As a writer, do you think that because you have so many emotions while you're writing a book, that the whole act, it's such a emotionally vulnerable task to write a book and to make characters out of your writing, that sometimes a lot of the writers, they put their own opinions and their personalities into the characters, just like your thoughts on Tamasha, and Ronit follows the same.
See, that will always happen. My understanding goes that a writer will either write about things that he agrees with, or he will write about things that he doesn't agree with. Like if you look at the part I left with you, I talk about things that I agree with. If you pick up Love to Hurt You, I talk about things that I don't agree with. So and it's coming through you. It has to have your opinion. It either has to be a thesis of your beliefs or an antithesis of your beliefs. You can't avoid it. That said, not every book is thought provoking. Some books are simple, plain stories and incidents meant to capture your interest. So those are a different kind of category altogether. Uh, and those stories are, I would say, designed differently because design is more of a technical term, and those books are more technical in their nature because how to maintain the interest, how to make it a page turner. That's the whole drive to write such books. But if I look at the part I left with you, you've read it. What is the story? But it's the things that they're saying. It engages your thoughts and then it makes you think. Now that's the kind of writing that I've been involved in the past few years. So there are different ways of writing different things.
It's rather than just seeking a destination, it's more about the journey of the characters and how they're getting to that point that the book talks
I
about
would
a lot.
I would say the discovery of things on the way. Like you discover so many things on.
Definitely. And each other, not just things, but people that you meet and discovering things about them and perceptions through them. Uh, I loved reading this book. Is there anything else that you're working on right now? What can we expect next from you?
So multiple projects, not one, multiple projects. One I'm close to finishing, but again, it's very different from this book. And I'm still to finish that. There's one idea which I think is beginning to develop in my mind. It's still not there. So let's see if it shapes up into anything. And yeah, there's one travel book that I'm working on. I've been working on it for the past, I started 2013, so you can calculate the number of years I've been working on it. So then I keep writing short stories on and off. So that's there. So a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff.
I'm now very patiently waiting to read all of that. We have some questions from the audience members. Can we address that?
Sure, sure, sure.
Uh, Aditya Joshi says, how do you ensure that the characters in your books are an honest reflection of the youth today?
Well, I can't say that. See, they're definitely honest reflections of the youth, according to me, because I portray them the way I see them. But I do also understand that I am a human being, and I also have a lot of filters for the way I look at things. And at times it might be something else, but I see it as something else. So I don't say that this is the absolute truth that my books talk about, and that's just the way they are. That's how I see them, and that's what I want to say about them, is what I will say.
The writer's perception, that is. Okay. Is there anything that you'd like to give a message out to the budding writers out there?
Budding writers, read more. I meet so many writers on and off, and so many approach me, and and I very few of them actually spend time reading. You've read this book, and you've been you've enjoyed the kind of philosophies and thoughts I've been talking about, and most of them are quotes from different philosophers, which I've directly mentioned in the book, that this philosopher is saying this philosopher is saying this art theory states that. That is what makes the whole experience rich and fulfilling, and that will not happen if you don't read. So read is one. Two, be patient. Right, when I started writing this book in 2017, and now it is getting published. And I have been very patient with this book, and it doesn't happen overnight. So if you've written something and if you're good with it, have confidence and be patient. Don't rush. Publishing industry is an industry where things happen very slowly, like good firewood. So understand that, and have patience. Don't push things. You will ruin things if you try to push it.
It was wonderful talking to you, sir, today. It's just so riveting to know your perception on the book. And I'm definitely going to reread the book now that I know what you think about it, and going back to it now.
And I like to know how you liked the second reading, and what were your take homes from the second reading of the book.
Definitely. I'm totally going to post it on my Insta and tag you there. Okay, for all the nerds out there, you know what to do. Go ahead and check out this amazing, amazing book. It's so worth it. And there are other works by the author also that you need to check out. They're just so lovely and so riveting. And for more book related content, you can follow Book Nerds on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Till then, thank you so much for watching, and see you all next time.
All right. And also, like, if you like discussing book, I do also run a YouTube channel, and I would love to have your take on the books that I talk about, because, I've seen a lot of YouTube reviews in which they talk about the plot, they talk about the characters, and that's how they end it. But I think that's not how books are to be read. You need to understand what it made you feel, and what was the whole idea about it, and how it changes your mind. So that's what I generally, focus on when I talk about books on the channel. So do check it out. It's by the name of Writing Rahul. I would love to have your thoughts on that. Why I'm saying this is because I talk to a lot of people about my book as well, and I also understand that different people read books differently. So you have that drive to read between the text, and peel the layers of the text and try to understand. So that's why I'm suggesting that I like to have your opinion on the videos as well.
I'm definitely going to subscribe just after I end this session.
Thank you. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
everyone.
All right.
Have a good day, sir. To all of
Okay.
you also, have a good day and happy reading.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.